Let's talk about levels of vehicle automation. Lots of articles about self-driving, driverless cars will make references to things like L1, L2, L3, L4. Those are levels on a scale developed by SAE to try to capture the amount of automation that a vehicle system has. Basically, how much of the driving task can the system do, and how much of the driving task is the driver expected to do. And there are 5 levels on this scale, starting at level 0, which is, of course, no automation at all. Level 1 and level 2 being kind of partial automation, kind of driver assistance systems. Things like emergency braking, collision warnings, lane keeping, lane departure warnings. So the kind of systems that are available are starting to become more and more available on passenger vehicles today. Level 3 and 4 are more things like autopilots. So systems that can, under certain conditions, really do the entire driving task. And then, of course, level 5 is, you could say, the Skynet level, complete total automation where the vehicle system is fully responsible for the driving task. Now, in some way, the SAE levels maybe make things a little bit complicated because saying L2, L3, L4, sometimes the distinction may not be too clear. And I've also seen people do things like say, oh yes, the system is L2 plus, or the system is L3 minus. Okay. But I think it's obscuring the deeper point, which is the driver involved or not, and what is the purpose of the system. So there is a kind of another, you could say, scale, another way to look at this that was formulated by Professor Kornhauser. So we can call it the Kornhauser scale. And there are basically 3 levels on this scale. Those are safe driving, so that's the collision avoidance systems. Self-driving, so those are basically the systems where you automate some part of the driving task, but the driver needs to be there to take over. Right? So the vehicle can drive by itself, but the driver may still need to be there. And then, of course, there is driverless, where you take out the driver completely. It's just a fully self-automated vehicle, and it can do whatever it needs to do. Now, maybe that's within a limited domain. Doesn't mean everywhere, but the key being that you don't have a driver there that will be there to take over. So the system must be designed such that it can recover by itself, or operate without a driver present. Now you could say, roughly, without going too much into the definitions, you could say, well, level 1, level 2 is kind of safe driving. I mean, I guess by definition, level 1 would be that. 2, 3, and 4 is kind of self-driving systems, because in all those you have the driver present. And of course, level 5 is driverless. That's where we can really take out the driver and have a self-contained machine driver in charge of the vehicle. Now, one little interesting note about these SAE levels, a personal one, is I had the chance to be there on one of the final draft sessions where they approved these levels back in 2014. So these have been around for quite a long time, and they've basically became a standard for describing how much automation there is. But again, sometimes they're not used properly. Sometimes they're not very clear, and sometimes they're skipped, and you'll see articles talking about oh, driverless vehicles are coming, but actually the system they're describing inside is, oh no, this is actually not a driverless vehicle. This is just a self-driving vehicle. So, remember, there is safe driving, right? Those are driver assistance systems that help you avoid collisions. And then there's self-driving, where the vehicle can drive by itself, but the driver is still there. And then there's driverless, which is you don't have the driver. So really the main question with any system is always to ask, is the driver there or is the driver not there? That's the major difference.